crooked man whispers from the crooked house. They say he lives where the earth itself bends wrong, where the wind whistles with an uneven breath, where time stutters. I never believed the stories, not when I was a kid, not when I was a teen. But I believe now, because I saw him, the crooked man. They warned us not to follow the twisted trail, not to walk past the old quarry where the ground buckled like boiling tar, not to step inside the crooked house where no wall met at a right angle. They warned us, but we laughed. We always laughed. There were 6 of us. Now there's just me, and even I. I'm not quite whole anymore. This is what happened. This is the truth no one wants to hear. The truth that gets buried under folklore and nursery rhymes. There was a crooked man, and he walked a crooked mile. And every soul who crossed his path now walks that mile too, forever. Let me take you back. Let me show you where it started. But know this, once you hear him, he already knows your name. Chapter 1. The Crooked Mile. I was 17 the first time I walked the Crooked Mile. We didn't call it that then. To us, it was just a stupid half-paved trail behind the old quarry on the edge of Elmridge. A forgotten path, flanked by dead trees and wild overgrowth. You could hear the crickets buzzing louder than usual, but no one cared. It was just another hangout spot, a place to escape small-town boredom. There were 6 of us that summer. Me, Jonah, Tasha, Mark, Lily, and Ben. We were the kind of group that stuck together because there was nothing better to do. We had our rituals, bonfires, late-night drives, swapping ghost stories none of us believed. But that August night was different. Jonah had heard about the crooked house, some half-collapsed shack deep in the woods, a place with a slanted roof and warped floors where nothing stood straight. He said it had been abandoned since the 30s, after a man went mad and vanished inside. Of course, we wanted to see it. We weren't afraid of fairy tales. We packed some flashlights, a speaker, a half-warm 6-pack, and headed down the trail just after midnight. The sky was thick with clouds, moonlight barely slipping through. The woods felt too quiet, not peaceful, vacant, like something had pulled the life out of it and left only shadows behind. Tasha said she felt watched. Lily joked that it was just squirrels. Jonah laughed too loud. I didn't laugh at all. As we walked, the trail got narrower, thinner, crooked. The ground dipped and sloped oddly, as if the earth had buckled in pain. None of us noticed right away, but I did start to feel it. Each step didn't feel quite right. Like I was walking off balance, even though the surface looked flat. Ben tripped first. He swore, got up, brushed it off. Then we found the first dead bird, its neck twisted in a spiral. Eyes wide, beak cracked. Mark said we should turn back. Jonah called him soft, and we kept going. About a mile in, the woods opened into a clearing, and there it was, the crooked house. It looked like a corpse, sunken into the dirt at an angle, as if the forest was trying to swallow it. Windows shattered. The front door hung like a broken jaw. The whole house leaned, groaning under its own weight. One side of the roof dipped so far it nearly touched the ground. No 2 walls matched. Nothing stood straight. It hurt to look at it for too long, as if your eyes tried to correct what shouldn't exist. Jonah was the first to step inside. Of course he was. And the rest of us followed. Of course we did. Inside, it was worse. The floor slanted so sharply that we all had to grab onto the walls to stay upright. But even the walls weren't straight. The angles were wrong. And I don't mean like old house quirky wrong. I mean mathematically wrong. You couldn't tell where the corners ended. Shadows fell where there was no light. And something in the air. It buzzed. Not like electricity, not like insects, like a hum, low, vibrating in your teeth. There was furniture inside, but it wasn't normal. A rocking chair with one leg longer than the others. A mirror that showed the room behind you. but not your reflection. We found a photograph on the mantel, a man with a long face and a twisted grin standing beside the house before it fell apart. He was holding a cane. His body leaned like the roof. Someone said, "Is that the crooked man?" And we laughed. That was the last time we laughed that night, because the moment the words left her mouth, the house creaked, and the door slammed shut behind us. Jonah tried to open it. It wouldn't budge. The windows didn't break when we hit them. Tasha's phone screen flickered and died. All of them did. That's when we heard it. The rhyme. Soft, slow, sung by something deep in the walls. There was a crooked man, and he walked a crooked mile. Each word made the walls moan. The air grew thick, heavy. Our flashlights began to dim one by one. Mark screamed. We turned. He was pointing at the hallway, and standing at the far end was a figure, too tall, too thin. His arms dragged along the walls like broken branches. His head bent sideways, twisted as if his neck had snapped. A long coat draped over his crooked form, and in his left hand, he held a cane, crooked. He didn't walk. He staggered, foot over foot, body swaying as if joints had forgotten how to move. He said nothing, but I heard it deep in my mind, a whisper. You walked the crooked mile. Chapter 2. Crooked shadows. He didn't chase us, not at first. He just stood there, silhouetted in the slanting hallway, his crooked head twitching in slow, mechanical jerks. The air turned heavy, as if the walls themselves were breathing. And all around us that rhyme echoed softly, like it was coming from inside the walls. He found a crooked sixpence upon a crooked stile. Jonah whispered, "It's just some sick prank." Ben said, "That thing ain't human." Mark was shaking so hard his flashlight bounced in his hand, casting shadows that spun like insects around us. The crooked man didn't move, but we did, fast. We bolted into the living room, hoping for another exit. But the more we ran, the more the house shifted. I'm not just talking about old wood creaking. I mean the walls changed. Rooms we had just left didn't exist anymore. Doorways became mirrors. Stairwells led to ceilings. And at the center of it all was that voice, singing, slow, dragging us into madness. We found ourselves in what looked like a child's room, peeling wallpaper, a broken mobile hanging from the ceiling with crooked stars. And on the bed, a stuffed animal with its head twisted all the way around, eyes stitched shut. On the walls, written in red crayon over and over again, "He lives in the bend. He lives in the bend. He lives in the bend." Tasha started crying, not sobbing, just silent tears streaming down her cheeks. She whispered, "This place is wrong. It's alive." Then came the footsteps, not human ones. Drag, tap, like one leg was longer than the other, and something heavy being pulled, the sound of a cane on warped wood. He was coming, the crooked man. We ran again, back into the hallway, only this time it wasn't straight. It curved up, like the spine of a snake. I swear to God we were climbing sideways, yet gravity kept shifting with us. Lily slipped, slammed against the wall, screamed. Jonah grabbed her hand. The hallway kept growing, impossibly long, as if the house stretched itself just to keep us in. That's when we saw the mirrors, dozens of them, lining the hallway walls. But they didn't show us. Each mirror showed a different version of us. Tasha with black eyes, Ben with his mouth sewn shut, Jonah hanging from a crooked tree, me, eyes gouged out, bleeding from my ears. I turned away. I didn't want to see any more. But the mirrors kept whispering. He made them crooked one by one. We finally found a door, not the front, not the back, just a door. It led to a spiral staircase, narrow, steep, barely lit. We didn't hesitate. We climbed, up and up, past doors that led nowhere, up past windows that opened to bricks, until we reached an attic. It was filled with children's shoes, hundreds. Tiny, mismatched, twisted in shape like the feet that wore them were broken. They were scattered everywhere. Some were burned, some still had socks inside. Lily said, "Oh my God, this isn't a house, it's a grave." She was right. On the far side of the attic was another mirror, larger than the others, framed in warped wood that curled like roots. But this one didn't reflect anything, just blackness. Until we got close. Then it showed. Him, the crooked man. But not as he was, as he used to be. A child, thin, alone, standing outside a school while other kids mocked him. His spine hunched, one leg shorter than the other, his cane dragging behind him, his eyes wide and sad. The pain was raw. It radiated off the glass like heat, and then the mirror cracked. A spiderweb fracture across the face, and from behind us, that voice. So close now it felt like it crawled into our ears, and they all lived together in a little crooked house. The attic door slammed. The mirror exploded. Shards flew everywhere. I felt one slice across my cheek, but I didn't care, because out of the broken frame, he stepped through. Not as a boy, as the thing he had become, twisted, taller, bent at impossible angles. Each joint clicked as he moved, like bones grinding into dust. His face was a stretched version of the boy's, now with a permanent grin, his mouth carved too wide. His eyes, gone. Just dark, hollow sockets that bled shadows, and in his hand, that cane, tapping. He pointed it at Jonah. Jonah froze. His body stiffened, then he bent, slowly, involuntarily, his limbs cracking as they twisted. "No," we screamed, but it was too late. Jonah dropped to the floor, bones bent, back warped, mouth gurgling as he tried to breathe. And then, silence. The crooked man looked at each of us, not with eyes, but with knowing. Then he whispered, "One, down." Chapter 3. One by one. We didn't bury Jonah. We couldn't. There was nothing to bury. He didn't die the way a person should. He just folded. I mean that literally. His limbs twisted inward, like a paper doll crumpled in a child's fist. His spine snapped in on itself. His mouth was still open, like he died mid-scream, but no sound had come out. And his eyes, they were blank, not closed, just gone, as if he had seen something that erased him. Tasha was the first to run. She sprinted for the attic window, smashing her shoulder into it with a force I didn't think she had. But the glass didn't break. It didn't even crack. It was like hitting stone. The crooked man didn't follow. He just watched. His body bent at the middle, like a marionette whose strings had been unevenly pulled. One leg crooked forward, the other behind, his neck tilted too far to the side. A silhouette of mockery, of pain. Ben grabbed a broken chair leg from the floor and charged. We shouted for him to stop, but it was like he didn't hear us. He swung hard. The wood splintered on impact. The crooked man didn't flinch. Instead, he reached forward and with just a finger tapped Ben on the chest. Ben stopped. His whole body trembled, and then, like a puppet with cut strings, he collapsed. Silent, mouth open, eyes empty, bent. Tasha screamed. Mark dragged her out of the attic, Lily and I stumbling behind him. We ran down the spiral staircase that now spun tighter, like it wanted to trap us in its throat. Each step creaked under our feet, vibrating like a heartbeat. By the time we reached the hallway again, everything had changed. The crooked house was no longer trying to resemble a real place. It had become a maze of shifting walls and impossible geometry. The floor rolled beneath us, like walking on waves. We entered what looked like a dining room, but the table was vertical. Plates were nailed to the walls, chairs dangled from the ceiling, slowly spinning, and above it all, a chandelier made of bones creaked gently with invisible wind. Tasha collapsed to her knees. She was murmuring the rhyme over and over like it was a prayer. There was a crooked man, and he walked a crooked mile. Mark slapped her, not hard, just enough to bring her back. "We have to keep moving," he said. "We have to find a way out." But every door led back to the same room, the vertical dining room, over and over, until finally we stopped trying. That's when we heard Lily. "Guys, he's here." She was staring at the far wall, but there was no wall anymore, just blackness, a long stretching void where the hallway had been, and from it a shape emerged. The crooked man, closer now, his cane scraped the ceiling, his grin stretched wider. He didn't speak, not with words, but something inside us heard it. 2 down. We ran again, but the house didn't let us choose the direction. It moved us, pushed us. I felt it like a current, dragging us through hallways that pulsed like veins. Eventually, we landed in a nursery, or what used to be one. The walls were covered in drawings, children's scrawls, red crayon, black ink, figures with long arms, big smiles, crooked legs, all of them labeled Daddy. In the crib was a bundle. It moved. Mark leaned in. "Don't," I said. Too late. He pulled back the blanket. Inside was a doll, or what I thought was a doll. It blinked, it smiled, and it whispered. 3. Mark dropped it, screamed, the door slammed shut behind us, and then we were 4. Chapter 4, The Backward Room. We didn't speak for a long time. The nursery grew cold. Not like winter cold, more like the heat had been pulled out of the air, leaving behind something stale and lifeless. Lily knelt beside Mark's body. She didn't cry. She just stared at his face like she expected him to blink, to cough, to say it was all some stupid trick. But he didn't. His body twisted on itself, bent at angles no human should take. His arms curled behind him, his legs folded like origami, like Jonah, like Ben. Tasha and I backed away. "We're next," she whispered. "He's counting us. He's always counting." Lily finally stood. Her face was pale, but her eyes were burning. "Then we find the end of the rhyme." I asked her what she meant. "The rhyme," she said. "It has an end, doesn't it? A crooked sixpence, a crooked cat, a crooked house. Maybe the only way out is through it." Tasha shook her head. "You sound insane." "So does this place." We left the nursery. The hallway this time was different. The wallpaper was made of newspaper clippings, dozens of them, yellowed, torn, all featuring missing children, missing teens. Some had photos, some just names. The dates stretched back to the 1950s. "They all came here," I whispered, "like us." The crooked house feeds on curiosity, on disbelief, on those who laugh at old stories and rhymes. We turned a corner and found a door marked with a handprint. Not paint, real, smudged in blood. It opened by itself. Inside was a room where everything moved in reverse. Literally. Time didn't flow forward. Our steps echoed backward. The ceiling fan spun counterclockwise. A clock ticked from 12 to 11, then 10. We heard voices, our own voices, from earlier, playing back in reverse. "Nom ne corsiet sa ere." Tasha clutched her ears. "Make it stop." Lily stared at the far wall. There was a mirror again, but this time it showed us, the real us. We looked alive, untwisted, scared, yes, but whole. And in the mirror, behind us, stood the crooked man. I spun around, nothing, back to the mirror, still there. Closer now. Tasha screamed and ran, right into the wall. But the wall melted around her, sucked her in like smoke. "Tasha!" Lily yelled. I grabbed her hand, pulled her back. Too late. Tasha was gone. Only the rhyme remained, whispering, 4, down. And then we were 3. Chapter 5, The Crooked Cat. We didn't speak for a while. Not because there was nothing to say, but because we were afraid that our voices might summon him again. The crooked man didn't need time. He existed outside of it, and with each name the rhyme whispered, he came closer. Now we were three. Lily, pale and trembling, took the lead. Her fingers grazed along the wall, which felt like skin, warm and pulsing. The hallway ahead flickered, not with light, but like a broken film reel. Scenes flashed in and out. A swing set in a dead yard, a crooked tree, a living room full of shadow children watching static on a TV. They weren't there, and yet they were. Then we entered the room. It was round, completely circular. The walls curved inward, and the floor sloped to a dip in the center like a whirlpool. There were no windows, only a low hum that vibrated in our teeth. In the center of the room sat a cat. It was black. At least, I think it was. Its body kept changing. One moment thin and sleek, the next twisted and angular like it was built from broken parts. Its back was arched unnaturally high. Its tail moved on its own rhythm, like a metronome out of sync with everything. Its eyes were the worst part. Slits of yellow that blinked vertically. They followed us no matter where we moved. There was a collar around its neck. The tag read only one word: mile. Lily stepped forward slowly. He had a crooked cat. I grabbed her arm. Don't. She pulled away. We have to finish the rhyme. She reached out to touch it. The cat didn't hiss, didn't move. Instead, it purred, a low vibrating sound that seemed to echo from below the floor. It made the whole room hum. And then behind us, footsteps. No cane this time, just feet, dragging. We turned, nothing. But the door was gone. The room was sealed. The cat stood up, walked a slow, spiraling circle around the center dip of the floor. Then it sat again, and purred, until the floor began to breathe. The dip in the middle pulsed, in, out, like a lung, like something alive was beneath us. The rhyme returned. He found a crooked sixpence. We looked down. A coin sat at our feet, old, rusted, bent in the middle. Lily bent to pick it up. Don't, I shouted. Too late. Her fingers touched the metal and her body convulsed. She collapsed, seizing, eyes wide. The floor opened, just a crack, and something beneath pulled her in, not fast, not violently, like a hand curling around a doll. She didn't scream. She only whispered one thing as she sank. Finish the rhyme, or he never stops. Then she was gone, and I was alone. The crooked man was near. I could feel it, closer now, so close. The purring stopped. The cat stared, and somewhere in the dark I heard the rhyme continue. 5, down, and the floor began to bend beneath my feet. Chapter 6. The crooked house. I was the only one left. The silence wasn't just around me, it was inside me. It felt like every sound I might make was being swallowed before it could escape. I stood still in the center of that breathing room, the air around me thick and wet, like lungs just exhaled all at once. The cat was gone. So was the coin. So was Lily. The floor settled, and then I heard it, a creak behind me. I turned. The door had returned. Only now it wasn't wood. It was bone. Human, I think. Its frame was made of spines, its handle a clenched hand, and the panels, dozens of rib cages fused together like patchwork. I didn't want to touch it, but I didn't have a choice. The moment my hand brushed the handle, it uncurled. The door creaked open. Beyond it, nothing, just blackness. I stepped through, and the world tilted. It felt like falling sideways. My stomach churned, my knees buckled. I stumbled into a hallway that looped back on itself like a Mobius strip. There were no right angles, only curves, spirals, endless, impossible geometry. The crooked house had awakened. Paintings on the walls blinked, doors whispered. The floor groaned like it had a voice, not wood, but something trapped inside, trying to speak, trying to scream. I passed a room filled with mirrors, but none of them showed me. Each reflection was someone else who had entered the house over the decades. A woman in a 1960s dress sobbing blood. A little boy clutching a teddy bear with a missing eye. A teenager scratching at the glass, mouth moving but no sound. Dozens of them, trapped. Then I saw a mirror that was empty, and as I watched, my reflection appeared. But it wasn't me, not anymore. My spine was crooked. My eye hung lower, my mouth curled sideways like melting wax. I stumbled back, and the mirror whispered, 6. I ran. Rooms changed as I passed them. A bathroom with no drains, a kitchen filled with rotten teeth in the sink, a stairwell that climbed straight into a wall. And then, the music box, soft, delicate, playing the rhyme. I followed the sound. It led me to a small bedroom. A child's room, dusty, decayed. The bed was tiny. On the nightstand, a music box carved with crooked flowers. It opened on its own. Inside was a note, just one line. He waits at the end of the mile. I turned. The wall behind me was gone. In its place, a long hallway, longer than any house should hold. And at the end of it, a door, perfectly square, perfectly still. The only straight thing in this entire nightmare, and standing in front of it, the crooked man. He wasn't moving, just waiting. I stepped forward, and the lights began to blink out one by one behind me, as if time itself was being erased, as if the house had one final breath to take. And I was it. Chapter 7. He waits at the end. Each step forward felt like a betrayal of everything I knew about space, about time, about logic. The hallway stretched ahead, longer than any house could physically hold. It had to be hundreds of feet, maybe thousands, maybe endless. The crooked man stood still, perfectly framed in the glow of a single ceiling light that flickered above him. That light was the only thing anchoring him to the real world. The rest of the corridor was pure shadow. I tried not to look at him directly, but every time my eyes slipped past him, they'd get drawn back in, like his very presence commanded attention, like the architecture of the house itself bent around him. The rhyme pulsed in my ears with every step I took. There was a crooked man, and he walked a crooked mile. It was inside me now. Not a song, not a sound, a memory, ancient, older than the rhyme. Older than this house. Halfway down the corridor, the walls began to change. They weren't walls anymore. They were faces. Eyes pressed outward beneath the wallpaper, mouths stretched in permanent silent screams. Some moved with me, whispering through the plaster, "Turn back. He bends what enters. He will make you fit." I kept going. I had to. I passed doors that didn't lead anywhere. Some were slightly open, revealing fragments of horrors I can't fully describe. A man endlessly sewing his own eyelids shut. A girl whispering lullabies to a pile of bones. A dog with a child's face, grinning at me from the dark. All of them bent, distorted, as if the crooked man had tried to fold them into something new and failed. And yet they still breathed, still watched, still waited, closer now. I could see him in full detail. His coat, long and trailing behind him like torn curtains, his spine arched backward at an impossible angle, his limbs too long, fingers twitching like a broken music box. His head tilted sharply to the left, chin nearly touching his shoulder. He smiled, not with joy, not with malice, with certainty. Like he had always known I would come. He bought a crooked cat, which caught a crooked mouse. The rhyme continued behind me. I didn't look back. When I reached him, I stopped just a foot away. He raised his cane, not to strike, but to point. At the door behind him, the only straight thing in the house, square, plain, real. It didn't match anything else. "Is that the way out?" I whispered. He tilted his head further, if that was even possible, and for the first time, he spoke. His voice was brittle, like dry leaves cracking in your hands. "The way out bends through." I didn't understand. He stepped aside. I reached for the door. My hand stopped just short the moment I touched it. I would belong to him. I felt it in my bones, in my blood. The house wouldn't let me leave unchanged. No one left without bending, without breaking, without forgetting who they were before they entered. Was the door even real? I looked into his eyes. They weren't eyes, just empty pits that reflected nothing, but pulled everything in. He didn't blink, didn't move, just waited. He would wait forever if I let him, but then I heard it, a voice behind me, small, distant. "Lily, finish the rhyme." Of course, that was the key. This wasn't just a haunting, it was a story, a pattern, a curse locked inside a nursery rhyme. And like all stories, it needed an ending. I turned my back to the door, faced him again, raised my voice. And they all lived together. He twitched. In a little crooked house. He screamed, not with his mouth, with the walls, with the floor, the ceiling. The entire house groaned as if it was trying to tear itself apart. The hallway shattered, light exploded, and the crooked man lunged straight for me. Chapter 8. The Folded Path. He lunged, and the world shattered. His body didn't move like anything born of this world. He twisted midair, his limbs bending like wet branches, his spine cracking with every convulsion. His face, if you could call it that, unfolded like origami in reverse. A mouth inside a mouth inside a mouth, all howling in layered, voiceless terror. And then everything went dark, pitch black. But I wasn't unconscious. No, I was awake. I was inside something somewhere, a pocket of existence folded into itself. The crooked house had pulled me into its final room. There were no walls, no floor, no sky, just folding. I could feel myself stretching, bending, as if unseen hands were shaping me like clay. I screamed, but the sound spiraled inward. I heard my voice come back to me, warped, twisted, older, younger, like 1,000 versions of me were dying all at once. The rhyme looped endlessly in the dark. There was a crooked man, and he walked a crooked mile. He found a crooked sixpence against a crooked stile. He bought a crooked cat, which caught a crooked mouse. And they all lived together in a little crooked house. Every line came from a different direction, above, below, inside my skull, outside my skin, and then I saw them, the others, Jonah, twisted and folded like a paper sculpture of agony. Tasha, arms spiraling around her own body, her mouth sewn shut with hair. Ben curled into himself so tightly that he no longer resembled anything human. Mark, suspended in a cage of his own bones. Lily, her eyes completely black, holding the crooked cat in her lap, as if it had always been hers. They saw me. They remembered me, and they began to chant. Finish the rhyme. Finish the rhyme. Finish the rhyme. I dropped to my knees in that endless fold. I wanted it to stop. I wanted to wake up. But this wasn't a dream. It was a place, a rule. A curse passed down through story and song. The crooked man stepped forward. He was whole now, complete, powerful. His cane struck the void with each step, creating pulses of gravity that pushed me backward. You stepped off the straight path, he said, voice scraping against the edges of my mind. You laughed at the rhyme. You entered the story. Now you belong. He reached out, and I felt my spine begin to bend. My fingers stretched. My jaw clicked sideways. I was becoming part of the house. But just before he could touch me, I spoke, and they all lived together. He froze. In a little crooked house, and with that, I screamed it. I screamed it with everything I had. And they all lived together in a little crooked house. The void shattered. A sound like breaking glass and thunder and screams all at once erupted. The crooked man convulsed. His body began to unravel, not explode, unravel, like a string being pulled from a cloth until there was nothing left. The room tore itself apart. I fell through space, through memory, through him, and then silence. Light. I woke up gasping on the lawn of the old Elmridge quarry. The sun was rising. I was alone. No house behind me, no hallway, just grass and the broken bones of a trail that led to nowhere. I looked down. My fingers were normal. My spine wasn't bent. But my shadow, it leaned, just slightly, as if something inside me still remembered. And on the wind, I swear I heard it. There was a crooked man. They say no one talks about the crooked house anymore. They say it was just a ghost story, an old rhyme to scare kids. But I know better, because I hear it every night in my dreams, in the static between radio stations, in the sound of branches scratching at my window. I survived. But I didn't come back alone. And if you ever hear a knock at your door, soft and uneven, if you hear a cane tapping on your floor when no one's there, if your walls start leaning just slightly, don't listen to the rhyme. Don't finish it. And whatever you do, don't follow the crooked mile. If you made it to the end, you're still not safe. But you can escape. Subscribe to the channel, share the story, let others know what waits behind the rhyme before he finds you.